All right, this is show number 105, recorded on February 11th, 2014. And tonight our guest is Andy Bloxham. Bloxham? Bloxham. Okay, I was close.
Yeah.
So we might have a time limit on tonight's show, Tim, because I think the world's ending here in Atlanta later on tonight. We got an inch of ice coming through, and we'll be fine tonight, but tomorrow is going to be interesting. But you know, in the meantime, let's go ahead and talk to Andy. And Andy, you're like Tim. You're up north of us, right? You're up in Virginia, West Virginia area. How are you?
Yep.
Are you guys getting a lot up there?
It's cold.
Okay.
I'm just, it just snows, so you just kind of get used to it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, if you're coming in from our Facebook group, if you're out there in the chat and you're coming in from our Facebook group, you're probably wondering, all right, who won the January photo contest? And we're going to hold that to the end. And not to build up drama, but because we want to get to Andy right away, and then we can come back and do that stuff at the end. So hang out to the end. I think we have a first-time event happening in the challenge, or the Facebook photo challenge. That's going to happen later on. So you have to hang out to the end to see what that is. So in the meantime, Andy, I was playing some of your videos before the show, and in the pre-show stuff. And if you're here before that, you were probably watching them, but you didn't hear the audio because I can't play the audio without having to get banned from YouTube. But I recommend anybody who's watching this live or watching this recorded later on to go over to Andy's website, and we'll have the link in the show notes, and go over there and look at the photos we're going to show, because you'll see them in higher quality than what we're going to stream. And also look at his videos. The videos with the music is just fantastic, and the creativity of the videos are wonderful. And I want one of those little red cars.
Those go up to Maine. It's like $70 for the day.
Okay.
They go about 10 miles an hour probably.
Oh.
You feel every
You made them
single
look
bump
really
in the
fast.
road.
You made them look really fast.
It's trick photography, I guess. It was fun though. You get into it and you're like, this is gonna be great, and all of a sudden it's like a little bitty go-kart, and you're scooting around. It's got 3 wheels, so like you feel like every bump everywhere that you go and stuff like that. But really, really fun. Definitely makes the day go by pretty well.
Yeah. So what got you into photography, in the video side too? What got you into photography?
I've just always kind of been into it. Either, making little short films like when I was a kid. I've always just been interested in like telling stories. So I've always been like a creative writer, and so filmmaking and photography was almost like a natural extension of that, because I'll always see these stories in my head and I would just write them down, and so it just kind of like just parlayed from there into telling those stories, but now just like in a visual medium. I was originally going for an MFA in creative writing in grad school, and I got rejected everywhere. So I was like, well, I guess maybe I need to find something different. And I always liked doing photography, and I never had a class in it or anything like that. And I was like, I just on a whim, like pursued photography in grad school, got in as like a conditional acceptance student, basically meaning they probably thought I would make it for like a quarter or two, and then my lack of background would probably, just shoot me right back out. And I was pretty determined just to, stay in grad school and keep pushing forward. And it's kind of like just evolved from there. I went from conditional to unconditional, and et cetera, and now I'm a professor of photography. So it's been a crazy ride so far.
Professor of photography. So do you see a lot of kids coming into college to be, are they wanting to get a degree in photography, or just taking courses in photography?
There's a lot of people like, getting a degree in photography. So like I go to SP every year, which is
hold on 1 second. They're saying they
Okay.
lost sound. I need to say something now.
All right.
Okay.
Test,
Sorry.
test.
I don't know where we lost sound, but we have it back now. So let's step sorry about that. Let's step back from 911 mic. No sound. It is coming. They're 30 seconds behind us.
Okay.
When the photos came up, we went quiet. Okay. Talk about your creative style and how you got into storytelling. That's I think where we were.
Okay. It's it's just like storytelling has been something I've always done, like just writing stories as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I wrote a story, I kind of like visualized it, as like a movie or a photograph or something like that. And it was really around grad school. I got rejected for creative writing in grad school, and photography I got accepted. And that was kind of like the definitive choice that I made. Because before that, I was getting a degree in psychology for my bachelor's. And so I knew I wanted to do something creative, for grad school and like for the rest of my life. But I kind of, used undergrad as like the foundation of what I would be making my stories about, like learning the people that I would then be turning into characters, or et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so I would say from grad school, it's been like the steady progression, primarily photography at that point. Then the Mark II came out, and, video opportunities, and it had always been kind of like cost prohibitive in many ways to shoot video and to do stuff like that. And then it was just like the next logical step. And so that's, there's been like all these different converging pathways that I've just kind of like just kept pursuing on and on.
And now you mentioned I think while we were silent there, you mentioned that you're a professor of photography. Are you seeing a lot of kids, are they coming in getting a degree in photography or just taking courses in photography? What's...
It's both. So like I'm actually the person who started the photography program at West Virginia Wesleyan. And so I've got, a good number of students in our art department are photography majors. And then there are people who are taking photography as like a general education course. And some of them switch over, some of them just keep taking photo courses, not even to get a degree, they just like it.
Mm-hmm.
They're education majors, or like physical education or business, and they're doing this just because they just enjoy just making photographs, and they're trying to maximize that as much as they can while doing what I did, getting a degree in something completely different.
Yeah, I would think that I don't know how many people go in for to get a degree in it, but it seems like it's getting more and more popular. More people are getting into photography. Maybe as DSLRs become cheaper, and of course you maybe you start off with a cell phone and then want to go from there. It's just more people seem to be getting into it. So hopefully you're seeing more and more students coming into your classes.
Oh yeah, well, there's a conference called SPE, so it's Society for Photographic Education, that's dedicated just to photography education. There's actually going to be like a national conference next month in Baltimore that's going to have like 1,000, 1,200 people that are just photography professors and photography students, just all converging from around the world, just for the education of photography.
And where's this going to be at?
So this is going to be in Baltimore.
Okay.
Like it's in a different city every year. Like last year was in Chicago. Year before that, San Francisco.
Okay.
Different all over the country.
Now, stepping back, I think this is stepping back. Maybe it's more recent, but your Shoot-a-Palooza. Tell me about that. That sounds like an interesting trip. How long did the trip last?
The trip, so there's been two of them.
Okay.
The first one was in 2010, and it happened because I have to go from Louisiana, where I'm from, to Maine every summer to teach at the Maine Media Workshops, which is where those videos that you were showing were originating from. And I had this whole collection of stories that I was wanting to tell, and I just had not gotten a chance to really focus on them in Louisiana. And so normally it's like a 3-day drive, and I decided in 2010 to turn like a 3-day drive into about a 3-week journey from Louisiana up to Minnesota, like all across like the northern cities, and then going up into like Montreal. I think it was like 4,000 miles, 3 weeks, just
Wow.
like photographing almost literally, I think, a new city every single night. So it was almost like being on tour, in a way, which is kind of interesting and kind of fun. And the same premise happened again like last summer. It was April, and I didn't have any summer plans yet. Like the year before, I had been in Ireland teaching photography, and that pretty much consumed the first part of my summer. But then in 2013, I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do, with my summer. And then, if you're a photographer and an educator, like the summer is like, that's your time, to make all of your work. And so on a whim in April, I was like, you know what, I'm going to travel the country again. And because I got to go to Maine anyway in July. And so I made a Kickstarter, which is a website where you can actually get funding. People, make donations of certain amounts. And then, once your work is completed, then you send back out prints or whatever they, kind of buy in for. And in May, I set out for, I think it was 6 weeks. on the road, and I went the longest way possible to Maine from Louisiana and still stay in North America. It was like Louisiana to all the way like down like I-10 to Los Angeles, and then all the way up I-5 to Seattle, and then from there into Vancouver, and then all the way across Canada to Winnipeg, and then looped under the Great Lakes from there, and then back into Toronto, and then Montreal, and then down to Vermont, to Maine. And it was the same format, but just bigger, like 8,300 miles of just solo road trip driving.
And most people, when they head from Louisiana to Maine, they don't go west.
No, that would be ridiculous. So why would you?
Yeah, and it's not just you driving. So what tell me about, because you're doing this, and these photos, we're streaming the photos now. We're doing a little slideshow of the photos you sent me. Are these photos from trips like those?
The majority of what we're seeing, like this one right now, was in Manhattan in 2010. But yeah, it's everywhere I'm stopping. I'm meeting up with local actors and models and photographers and image makers, and we're just getting together and just creating a new story there. And I already have like all my ideas planned out. I've already kind of networked and handled the logistics. I just kind of have to show up to a new city, and then meet up with the people I need to meet up with and go make the photograph. And so yeah, it's definitely, there's this huge drive, like physically driving, but then once you get there, then then it's time to work. And then I'm also making portraits during this time, and just blogging, and just this whole experience. It's the whole thing that I really enjoy. I love the photographs, like the big photographs that we're kind of streaming right now, are almost like what's the word I'm looking for? The prize, maybe?
Oh, the prize?
Yeah, the prize. It's like the evidence of going to some place, and it's something that fits into like this body of work that I have, but it's a complete like experience for me that I really enjoy. Just the whole bouncing and making work and interacting with new people, and just seeing what we can create in the kind of construct that I've built with this road trip.
So prior to starting off, you've already decided what all your shoots are going to be, and what cities they're going to be in, and coordinated with all the people that are going to be in each one of these shots?
For the most part, like I have this big notebook that usually I have is it's like a lot of short stories I've written, and I kind of use that as my starting point for concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I kind of establish, I don't want to drive more than 14 hours in a day, so I should probably stop in Las Cruces, New Mexico, or wherever. I was like, okay, I need to go here. Now, who do I know that's here? If I know one person, I call the network up and see if they got a couch, and if they know people, if they want to be involved. And if I don't, I use websites like Model Mayhem, which connects me with actors and models. And these people also are awesome enough to usually let me just crash on their couch or spare bedroom. So I'm a complete stranger, like sleeping in strangers' houses and making photographs with people at the same time. But for the most part, like I know who I'm working with in each city. I know what the photograph will be. Sometimes, you're driving and also kind of doing some business, trying to make sure that the place is going to pan out, But for the most part, I'm like, roughly 75 to 85% locked in with each city, like over like 6 week, period.
That sounds like a massive undertaking. Maybe I need to get you to start helping me on booking guests here, because all I got to do is book a guest a week, and I struggle with that. And I'm just thinking of the logistics of this, of one, finding a location to shoot in each one of these cities. That's forgetting the physical drive and the gear you're going to have to bring with you, but the coordination of finding a location, and some of these are the location that really adds to the shot. Coordinating to get people there. That sometimes you say Model Mayhem, but sometimes I guess they're not. They're local actors or whatever. And are these guys willing to do this for free, or doing it for shots or something like that? Or
it's like a trade for like portfolio. Okay. So like high resolution images go back out to people who have photographed, and then they can use that in the portfolio, and it's just kind of like this trade off right there.
And then coordinating a place to sleep.
Yeah, I think I slept in a hotel in Las Vegas on this road trip, and I stayed in a hotel in Vancouver. But otherwise, over 6 weeks, I never got a hotel other than those 2 nights.
That is
I slept
That's
incredible.
on,
amazing.
well,
That really is
yeah.
amazing that people will open up like that. I mean, obviously they see what you've done. The second trip, I got to imagine, was a lot easier than the first trip also.
It,
It was
they were
longer,
both
but
hard.
yeah,
Well, what I mean by
But
easier,
the
it was
groundwork was there.
getting
yeah.
people to stay, allow you to stay, because now they've seen what you've done previously, so it's not like, well, who is this Andy guy? What's he trying to do?
Exactly, exactly. No, because then you have like, prior context.
Right.
This has been done before, etc.
Plus, I gotta imagine
Yeah,
when
no,
you're talking to potential people that they're going to go check out your website and they see your work and go, okay, yeah, I can. This guy's legit. I'll work with him.
there was a story in Ames, Iowa. I was going there in 2010, and I was going to stay at the girl I was photographing with. She lived with her parents, so they were just going to let me stay in their guest bedroom. And and the mother was talking about, we got this photographer coming through town, and we're going to stay there. And she said, yeah, let me see his work. And she pulled up the image of me like in bed with a blow up doll. It was one of my photographs. She goes, here's the guy who's going to be staying with us. And she shows the picture, and they're like, are you sure? And she goes, I think it'll be fine. So yeah.
And let's see if I can find the blow up doll. I think you had that one.
That was up there before. Yeah, I saw that one.
So,
and it was like you're looking back at the parents, no less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. So one of the things I like about your shots is, as I look through them, it's while the exposure and the lighting and all that adds to it, it's the story that each one of these is telling. And I mean, for a lot of these, I can sit there and stare at them, just trying to figure out what is the story here. And this is one of them. You got the doctor thing, the stethoscope or whatever that thing's called.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, there's obviously somebody behind you, like you've gotten caught or something. I don't know. And then you're guessing, does he have underwear on?
I like to say that I don't like to present like the full package.
Yeah.
Well, this is probably a bad photo to say that word, but I like to give you glimpses or like a snapshot into a story, that has a beginning and a conclusion, but I'm only giving you like this one glimpse, and it creates like a collaboration between the photographer and the audience to then finish the narrative or figure out the starting point. And I like photographs that ask questions, rather than just like blast you with the answers, because if it's all answered for you, it's really quick and it's not very filling. But if you, as a viewer, get to feel like they're a part of the image, more so because they have like an active voice, like a participant's voice, then perhaps the photograph is more fulfilling to them because they get to kind of make their own verdicts after that. And I do enjoy that. And I have a hard time making photographs where I just walk around, just click, because I don't have a blueprint. And so every photograph that I make, except for one, and I'll tell you which one that is, has like some story that I've written. And the photograph might not actually be like the story once I'm done with it, but at least it points me in the right direction, and it gives me that groundwork. And then I use the photo making process to then launch the story wherever it needs to go from there. But at least I'm starting from something not concrete, but definitely like a strong concept that's going to be like my foundation for the image.
Okay. Now, go back to what you said about how you don't reveal everything and you leave the viewer guessing somewhat. No, I like that, because then my imagination can run with it. Ultimately, I'm glad to have you here, because you wanted to come to the answer. And so what is he looking at in that shot? I think the one with the blow-up doll. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but
it could be. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't necessarily have the answer to the photograph, because I make it and I know that moment for the image, but then I'm a viewer then as well, coming up with my own conclusions. Someone's peering into the door, the mother's walking and the kids, the actual girlfriend, the wife,
That's true.
Whatever.
That's true. You don't know whether it's his mom, it's his girlfriend, it's you're really left.
Could be his roommate in college.
They could be anything. That's what you're left up to it. I guess your life then overlays on top of that, and how you would see it.
Exactly.
Right, that's a good way of putting it, Mike.
So-
I like that. Everybody's interpretation is different.
Yeah, and Jeff out in chat said, I think this is the one he likes. Let me pull it up. Jeff, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but he said the girl in the street with the pink splatter, and I think you mentioned this was up in Manhattan or something, Andy. This shot here.
Yes. So I'll tell you like my mindset going into making this image. And a lot of times I don't necessarily know, why my mind is thinking what it's thinking when I'm making the image. Then I piece it all together after the fact. And so after I made this image, I'm just looking at it. I'm just kind of thinking about it. I'm like, what is this pertaining to? What could this maybe be about? And my conclusion was way different from my starting point for my story. But I started thinking about how stupid aliens are portrayed in movies. I'm not saying aliens are stupid, but War of the Worlds, bacteria, whatever kills aliens, and Signs, water kills aliens, and these are like such horrible ways to go because that's so low impact. And I was thinking about what if aliens invade New York, because that's always the first place everyone attacks, in the movies.
Sure.
But they develop some foreign technology that's like devastating to their home world. But then when they come in to attack us, thinking they're about to take us out, it's something no more potent than like Pepto-Bismol or something. And so it's just this paradox of attacks and then the reality of the situation, and it's not necessarily clear. It's like, why is this happening? I don't know. I'll also give a tip on the production end of things with this image. When you are breaking the law. When you're making a photograph, you should make the photograph as quickly as possible.
So I take it then you are breaking the law in this photograph. Which law?
I'm pretty sure you have to have a permit.
To do what?
Well, I'm pretty sure you have to have to basically set up lights and stands and to do a production like on the street corner.
Yeah.
And so like I'm on a sidewalk with lights set up and this camera and a fog machine and everything else.
Fog machine.
And a fog machine.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit over the top for just a quick picture.
Yeah. So, it's like, all right, it got to be like 30 minutes. Another tip is if you do decide to do that and you don't get, arrested or tickets, and you pour Pepto-Bismol all over yourself for making a photograph, and you're going to have to carry your equipment 3 New York, blocks away, make sure you bring a towel just to wipe the stuff away from your face.
Yeah, but us New Yorkers wouldn't even notice it.
So,
well, see, yeah, it's not too far from where like the guys painted all in gold like a firefighter.
Right.
I think it was like maybe a block away. So we're just
so
another
is the fog machine behind that car parked on the other side of the block?
It is, and yeah. So there's a hint of fog. It kind of malfunctioned on me like when I was shooting. So there's a hint of fog coming in around the car on the right, and then there's some fake fog in the background just to kind of create this a top-down
Surreal.
dust pattern or something. Yeah, exactly.
Somebody out in chat had asked, Aaron had asked, do you have any like behind-the-scenes video? Now this one, I guess you had to take your shot, set up, take your shot, and get out. Do you ever do any behind-the-scenes, videos that somebody can watch later on?
I do. If you go to my website. And there's a link to Shootapalooza, the sequel right there on the website.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit that there's still blog posts I have to finish, like retroactively in a way, because of how the time crunch happened. But I do try to shoot just a lot of stuff with just my iPhone, just quick snippets of video, interviews with the people I'm working with, or updates on what's happening that day of the shoots. And so a lot of those posts will have like little video, like 1-minute clips or something. There's a photograph of where I'm like riding like a piece of flying cardboard, and it's actually on my YouTube channel. I think right now has like behind the scenes of us actually shooting that photograph, plus like just some other stuff as well. It's not like highly produced, behind the scenes footage. It's just from my phone. Although the Redhead Alliance at redheadalliance.com, I actually made a full behind the scenes documentary. It's like 20 minutes long.
Oh, wow.
And so you can go there, and there's like interviews with all the cast members, and there's production video, and just all that was very much set up to be almost like a movie. So I tried to make sure it was like a disc 2 DVD, like the documentary making of type stuff, and try to treat it like that.
Okay. Now you had mentioned that one of the videos or one of the shots was something that you set up differently.
Yeah.
Do you know which
Okay.
one
So
that was?
yeah, there's a photograph where I'm sitting on a couch and this tree has just fallen into the roof of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that one, I didn't intend to make that video. I just intended that night just to go to sleep and get up the next day and go about my life. And during the night, I was staying with a friend who was house sitting for her aunt and uncle. And at some point in the night, I just went downstairs to use the restroom. And I came back through this room, and I got this weird premonition feeling. Like I couldn't explain what it was. It was just like this aura about where I was right then, and I just knew I was in danger of some sort. And so I just quickly just went upstairs and went to bed. And then 5 minutes later, the house just explodes. There's this rumble. And we're in Shreveport near like Barksdale, like the Air Force Base.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe like a bomb had went off or whatever. And so we're like running downstairs. She's on the phone with 911. The alarm's going off, power's out. And I look back where I had just been standing, just like a few moments earlier, and I could see like stars coming in through the through the ceiling, because like a hole just had been ripped out of the top of this house. And so I didn't intend to make that photograph, but I was like, this is a situation that sort of falls in your lap in a way. And so, so to speak, yeah. And so I decided to make an image in that space. And it's not something that's based on any story. It's just kind of reacting to an environment. And, then that's the one people don't believe. They're like, what did you do in Photoshop to do this and that? And I was like, I was asleep. And tree fell into the house.
It almost looked like you're sitting there, and it's like, what is this racket behind me as a tree just came crashing through?
Yeah.
Exactly.
When I first looked at it, I thought, oh, there must have been a tornado or a tree fell through the house somewhere, and you went into this house that was probably marked off, with police tape. Went into this house and did a quick photo shoot and ran out, not thinking that you were actually in the house when this happened. That makes the image. Yeah, that's that's awesome. Glad you're okay.
That's almost. My heart wouldn't stop beneath like 200 beats a second or a minute. After that night, so that was like the next morning before the insurance people came. That's in a way that's almost like my attempt at photojournalism right there. And that's about as close as I get. Because most of my stuff they're lies. They're fiction, and this is actually sort of about the truth. And so that's my attempt. Yeah.
And there's one I was looking for. Well, let's go to this one next. I think this one, all of them kind of tell a story. This one, you kind of first made me think it's paintball, but it's with eggs. And how do you get the guy who looks like he's being hit at that moment with eggs? Is that just a bunch of takes? Or
you throw eggs at him, and and just you're there with a cord, just as soon as you see the egg splatter, you're firing off the camera and just timing again, trying to get your timing right. But you only have like 12 eggs, so, and you want to keep a few for the rest of the photograph too, so you got to get it right pretty quick.
Now, are these people from like a local actors guild, or are they Model Mayhem or something like that?
They're Model Mayhem. They're both in Montreal, and that's at the Biosphere. Okay. Maybe it's this big dome in Montreal at a park. And this is like within like 10 minutes of being in Montreal for the first time in my life. We all decided we were going to meet at this park. Never met any of these people in person before. We get there, like I had already asked her if she would buy the headbands. I bought the eggs in Vermont and probably smuggled them into Canada. And
I'm sensing a pattern.
Yeah, and so then we get there like, hi, my name is Andy, introductions, and then we start making a photo, and then it rains, and then like I destroy like an umbrella because I forgot the sandbag, a light stand, and it fell over, and so it's like things are happening, and we're just rolling with it because this is like the end of like my first trip in 2010, and we make this image here, and like I said, in order to capture stuff like that, practice timing, everything like that, and when I talk about this photograph, I always go back to, this mentality of almost like this childlike mentality. Like, I never will forget what it was like for me to be like 5 or 6 years old, because my imagination was just so vivid. and I never want to lose that. And so I'm always trying to refer back to like that mindset or that perspective. And so it reminds me of, you know, like when I was like a kid, or like a week ago when I went back to Louisiana, and I would just grab a stick and I'd be like in the woods, and I would pretend like every tree is like some imaginary enemy soldier. I'm like running through the woods, just smashing it, you know, or I'll like do like a Last of the Mohicans like tomahawk throw or something. And, you know, I'm kind of pulling all of that, you know, foundation into making photographs like this, you know, that are referencing, maybe not specifically or directly, but it's referencing like the idea of what it's like, you know, with this imaginative, childlike, you know, mind. And there's the image.
And you're again in a public park here, throwing eggs at each other. Was there any? Is there anybody else besides the three of you? Is there anybody actually helping you set up the lights and help you run later when the authorities come?
Well, I got to imagine there's somebody at least throwing the eggs.
Yeah. Well, I paid for parking, so I felt justified.
And you know they're biodegradable. Eggs are biodegradable, so. Right,
and they're not, even they're not a seed. They're not going to grow bigger eggs or anything, so we're good. No, usually, like the photographs are done like in pieces. So if you ever see a photograph of me with like somebody else, typically I'm the person photographing them, and then I trade off and give my remote cable to whoever else is in the image, and they're the one clicking the camera for me. The camera's just on a tripod, lights and everything. All the technical stuff is just set up, and it's kind of has built a stage. And then from there, we can kind of just live inside this world that's a 2:3 ratio that we, have as our moment. Like that's the world inside of the photograph. So models, click the cameras for me. I'll do a timer. It depends on what's there. Very rarely do I get somebody to help me who's just running the camera or just moving lights or anything like that.
Okay. There was one image that's on your website that I don't see here, but it's with you and another girl. It's not the shot I'm pulling up now. Another girl. Both of you look like you're in your underwear. There's a guy that's standing there with a notepad. And that one, and of course I'm going to talk about this one in just a second, but the one I'm describing, I don't think it's in the set that you sent me, but it's on your website. That one's interesting too, because both of you kind of have this look. Maybe I can find it on your website and we can look at it through there. That, I just keep looking at that one, trying to figure out what is going on here. What is I don't know.
Well, when I look at it, I kind of think back, there's two things. I wanted to make a photo. When I was in France, I was at the Musée d'Orsay, and there was this painting of 8 foot by 6 foot painting of just like a close zoomed up like vagina painting. Okay. And it's just boom right there like on the wall. And it's not necessarily awkward because of the content, but it's awkward seeing people just like standing in front of it, like, doing like the whole gazing about the painting thing. And it's just like, I don't know how to be in the space with this guy who's doing, this. It's just kind of, I'm going to go somewhere else. This is a little awkward or something. And so I was like, can I do that in a photograph? Can I make something that is probably awkward to shoot, awkward to edit, awkward to put into a gallery? Is it maybe awkward for people to think about standing in front of it for a very long time because they're worried about what people are going to think about them, looking, at this image?
Yeah.
But what the kind of like the idea behind it, it's kind of playing up the idea of like a threesome going wrong. It's almost like a John Madden playbook. You had this set of plays you were going to do, and at some point somebody ran afoul. They went left, and you should have went right, and now we're going back to the starting point, kind of rebuilding, and like, all right, let's take it back. Let's go back to where we need it to be, or something like that.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I again, in making these photographs, I don't usually know the people, or okay. I barely know them. Like, I knew him from like a Model Mayhem, discussion. And she's one of his friends, and I wrote, this is in Columbus, Ohio. I get there, I've been there for like 15 minutes. I say hi, introduction. I meet her. I tell her kind of like the basic premise of the photograph, and I tell her, I was like, all right, we're going to be in our underwear, and we need to try to act as awkward as we can around each other. And it wasn't that hard to do at all.
I am impressed that within 15 minutes you got her down to her underwear. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Oh,
But outside of that,
yeah.
you know what? Looking at this image, I just keep looking around for clues and what is happening here, because she looks unhappy with you, but you look unhappy with her, and then the dude is just looking through a notebook. So I'm trying to zoom in and read what's on the notebook, and that's what I love about the shots, is that I just keep going through the image. What is going on? What is the clue? Where's the clues on what's going on? And as you go through that, you start making up your own ideas on what is happening in the image.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that's really fun is, you can drop in like little bits of context, to help steer people in a direction, but not necessarily the direction, but at least you come to an 8-way stop. You at least have at least narrow it down to like 2 or 3 options. They can go this way, or this way. But there is no definitive answer hidden somewhere in the photo. It's not a Waldo type thing. So, you still have to kind of, depending upon you as a viewer of photography at some point, to come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, and that's what ultimately I do. And to be honest, with most photos, no matter how good they are, you don't spend that much time looking at them. You look at it, you judge it based upon whatever criteria, lighting or color or black and white or detail or emotion, whatever, and you move on. And that generally doesn't take that long. What I have found when I'm going through your images is I spend time on each one, analyzing what is happening in this scene, and this next one here too. And of course, my first thought with this one was, maybe he needs a blue pill, to help the situation out. But then as I start going through it, I start questioning my thought. I don't think that's it. And it's just the joy of each one of these to me is joyful to go through, and the discovery that you go through with each one of them. Before I forget, and it rolls off the screen, somebody asked, since you doing all this stuff, how many fines have you gotten over the course of all this?
Two fines. And they were parking tickets. In Montreal, every time I get a parking ticket, and it's not because I'm shooting anything, it's because I stopped for a second to get a coffee, and I run into like a street performer, and it was really cool. And then I forget that I'm parked illegally, and so, and then I go 6 months forgetting to pay my ticket, and I'm like freak out for a second and think I have like a bench warrant for me in Canada, and then I'm like, oh, and I go online and just pay it. But I've never been fined, to make a photograph.
Yeah. Have you had the authorities or security guards or somebody come up and say, what are you doing? Get out of here?
I've had security people intrigued, just kind of wanting to know. But then I usually try to show them what I'm doing, and show them give them the context behind what I'm doing, and maybe show them other photographs. And I have a story for you actually. Okay. But for the most part, they're always cool about it. I was coming back from Winnipeg, and I was going down to the North Dakota, state line, country line. Mm-hmm. And I'm at, custom or border patrol, whatever. And they decided, there's something curious about what's going on. So they have me pull aside, and I'm on my way to Minneapolis at this point. And they made me pull my car up to the garage, and they're asking me what was I doing in Canada. I tell them I'm making photographs, traveling on this road trip, making stories in a frame. Probably shouldn't use that kind of jargon. Just say I'm taking pictures with friends, or just say I'm on vacation. That's easy enough.
I'm a photographer, yeah.
Exactly. And so then they pull me in, and then they're gonna search my car and see if everything matches up. They had me empty my pockets, and they're like, what were you doing in Canada? And I'm trying to explain what kind of photographs I make. I'm like, I make, movies, but in a frame. So they're like, constructed, cinematic. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, I'm going to get my phone to show them. They're like, oh, no, don't touch anything. Just tell me what it is. I was like, it's a photograph. It's a visual thing. I could just show you. Okay, I make pictures where it's a story, and people are acting, and we're doing pretend to tell some kind of bigger story or something. And they had me go in this room, and I'm watching. They open up my trunk, and there's a full studio in my trunk of my car.
Was the blow-up doll on the top?
No. I gave that away to a professor when I graduated from grad school. This was this past year, and they open up this trunk and they just see like the stacks of like light stands and soft boxes, and they're like, we're just gonna close this back, because then they'd have to repack it or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then they go through my car and they just kind of like they realize I'm telling the truth, and so they give me my stuff back, and then the guy, like the security guy or whatever, he looks at me, so he's like, so how do you get your people to take the pictures with you? Because at this point I had showed him like what pictures to do, and I was just like, I'm half an hour late, so I'm just like, I ask. That's how I do it. And he's like, okay, and I get in my car and drive off. But for the most part, people they're more curious. They're like, oh, that sounds like a fun time, and then you're on your way.
Yeah. Were you at any point during that were you nervous about how this was going to
go? Yeah, but you try not to be nervous because of the fact that once I got to, like Oregon, or Vancouver, I was like as far away as possible. And so no matter if I was nervous or not, I still had to drive back across the country. So it's like, just live in the moment and just enjoy it. Yeah, so, you get a little nervous or like a little panic attack and you just walk away, breathe for a little bit and just realize that, you're doing it one day at a time and this is what you enjoy doing. And make the most of every single day. And so that's kind of what I tried to do.
Yeah. All right. This next one here with you come around shooting the water pistol, the guy pulling at your jeans, the lady, I don't know what she's doing up there. A lot of these scenes, they just look like they're fun to do. Not just for you, but for the actors that are there too. I got to imagine maybe a lot of time the Model Mayhems or people or whatever are doing the typical photo shoots where they're acting as a model. These actually look like they're fun to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people like to do the photographs because of that, because it's not just let me stand here and look pretty, become objectified and et cetera, et cetera. It's more like, I'm gonna embody like a character, and I'm gonna, it's gonna be maybe a well-rounded character that we're given a glimpse of this character that I'm portraying. This was done during grad school, and so for the first 2 years, I never used anybody who'd ever modeled before. These were just like friends, people in classes. I was just like, hey, you want to be in a photo? Sure. You got 20 minutes? Sure. And just, tell them basically what they need to wear and just kind of just act and just do it over and over and over and just kind of see, what happens. This is actually one of the first images, I would say, probably in my whole project that is like constructed narratives. This is one of the earlier ones here.
Okay. And again, if you're looking at these in the video stream, where you do degrade them a little bit so that it streams over and doesn't chew up everybody's bandwidth, so I'd encourage you to go to his website and look at all the photos and the videos in higher resolution. So Andy, now I forgot my question. How do you find the locations? That's my question. Because one of the things I struggle with, and I'm not nearly as creative with my shots, just a general shot, is finding good locations. And all of these look like the location is just very fitting to the image and a well thought out location. Or is you just making it that way, or did you actually find a location that said, I want to do something here?
It's a little of both, but it's predominantly you can make anywhere look interesting if you have your angles right and your lighting, interesting. Because at the end of the day, it's more about how the light is shining upon a space rather than just the space.
Right.
And so when I'm touring around, I'm just kind of I just have an hour to find somewhere. Unless I've Google imaged it ahead of time or something like that. Stuff that I'm making, like when I was making in grad school, if I'm making here at my home base, I get, spend a little bit more of a day just kind of investigating. But for the most part, as long as I have a relatively okay space, enough space to bring lights in, enough space to kind of do the action that I'm wanting to do and still be, interesting, it comes down to basic, design, the way you arrange the space, looking at how you're going to be lighting it. Thinking about, low perspective or high perspective for your camera, that has a world of difference in how you portray a space. And, it's essentially, kind of like the core basics of photography. As long as you can be really grounded in that, you can transform a lot of, spaces. Like Quentin Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs was filmed like in a warehouse, and he was just constantly just moving things around to make it as versatile as possible. And so I try to keep that mentality. You can just work with what you have and just make it the best as you can.
But you still have to find a scene that basically fits what you're thinking about, right? I mean, like this one I got up now, I don't know if you had the thought of the scene before you found the location, or found a location then had the thought of the scene. But either way, if your thought was with a guy standing next to a pool, you're going to have to find a pool.
You have to find a pool. And there's a funny story with this one, actually. The backstories I really enjoy on a lot of these photographs, because there's always like some kind of like something funny happened or whatever.
Yeah.
This is in New Mexico, in Las Cruces, where water, if you have green grass, you're rich because, you can afford to water your grass. And like I said earlier, I knew I was going from Austin to Prescott, Arizona. And I needed to stop somewhere between, or I was going from San Antonio, to Prescott. And Las Cruces was kind of like a good middle point. And I met up with somebody from, she was a fan of my Facebook page, Susan. And she told me that, I could just like crash at her place, when I was coming through. And I wanted to make a photograph while I was there. And I had a photograph that pertained to a pool, and I just offhandedly asked her, I was like, do you know maybe of anybody who has a pool that I could make a photograph at? And she goes, I have a pool in my backyard. And I was like, perfect. And so this image is really close to the thumbnail that I had drawn, or the storyboard I had drawn like 6 months earlier. It's flipped, like what is left is right, what is right is left, from the drawing, but otherwise the background, like, the house, the pool, the composition, everything is exactly kind of what I anticipated it being. And It just happened chance, just luck. And I think the more you kind of plan for things, the more luck also tends to happen, because you're putting yourself in a situation for that to occur.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So before we run out of time, because we only have, before the hour's up, we only have a little bit more than 10 minutes, and we got a lot I want to cover. We do try and keep these to about an hour so we don't abuse our guest. But there's a couple things I want to cover. Something, let's go over the advanced young photographers. Is that what it's called? Did I write that down wrong?
Up in Maine?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, it's the Advanced Young Digital Photographers workshop.
What is that?
So Maine Media Workshops has a young artist program. So teenage students can essentially come up to Maine for 2 weeks at a time and take a class. It can be in digital photography or the darkroom or filmmaking or mixed media or there's different things. And so I teach a few different courses up there. One being Advanced Young Digital Photographers, or as we call it, Advanced Yo Digi. Yo meaning young artists, and Digi meaning digital. And but they're like fully immersive. Like the students all live in this converted hotel building, and they all live there. And we start class like at 9 in the morning. We go to like 9 or 10 or 11 at night, like every day, like Monday through Friday. And we're in the lab. We're on the computers, working in post production. We're on location. We're doing field trips to the ocean, to the beaches, to all the sites of Mid-Coast Maine. We're doing location lighting. We're doing in the studio making portraits. Just basically, I'm just trying to tell them as much as I know about photography in 2 weeks, and spend 12, 13 hours a day doing that. And then at the end of 2 weeks, like what we've shown in the slideshow is the results of that 2 week time.
Okay, and is this? Sometimes I'm looking at other stuff, getting the next shot ready, so I miss things, and I know it's going to happen to me sooner or later. So hopefully you didn't answer this question already. How much does that cost to take a 2 week crash course like that?
I don't know the exact. It's around between $2,000 and $2,500.
Okay, but you're getting a 2 week. You said a 2 week course, right?
2 week course. That's also with room and board, food, everything.
That's pretty incredible. So we have one question from the chat. Going back to the shots we're looking at, do you ever do any kind of storyboards? You were talking about a drawing you did of the pool, but do you ever do any? Do you do that with all your shots? Do you draw them before, or put down your thoughts on paper like that?
I do. I definitely have a degree in photography, not painting and drawing. And if you
Yeah.
were to see my storyboard, you would know why. But yeah, everything like 99.5% of the photographs I make start off as stories, like full on I'm writing prose. It's either like a snippet of a story or a full story, and then I abstract that down to like the main paragraph, and then like the main couple words, like the idea of the story, and then I make a storyboard, like one just drawing, based upon inspired by that aspect. And that's kind of like all these are like my blueprints, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer to the photograph. And I might put details about like where I will be making this, or what the lighting will be, or the location. And it's an approximation because I have to adjust for where I actually get to make the photograph at. But yeah, everything usually has something rooted in sketches, drawings, something like a guide or a reference point, and then I make the photograph after that.
Okay. All right. So that hopefully it answered your question, Alicia. I think that it did. So the other question I had, and this one, you're a redhead. My son,
Yes.
my youngest son, is a redhead, and you did something. What I wrote down the Redhead Alliance.
Yes.
Tell me about Redhead Alliance.
Redhead Alliance was my thesis for grad school, and the premise was what would it be like if the redheads of the world could unite, in a way of kind of fighting back against all the red oppression that we experienced growing up, whether it's being picked on for a red hair, or, kick a ginger day, or proving your ginger daywalker status. I have to tell people I'm a daywalker, all of this stuff. I was like, what if we could form like an underground alliance? Underground, of course, so the sun doesn't shine in and like burn our skin.
Right.
But and so we're kind of like fighting back against the civilization that's it's kind of shunned us to the shade, if you will. And so the whole series is told in this very linear, sequence, starting point to end point. I mean, it's a completely different approach than how I've done all my other photographs, but it's like a movie in 35 still frames. And it tells the story of a character who joins the alliance, and he's fighting for the redhead cause. And then he has a moment of, contemplation because of meeting someone who's not a redhead, and this whole turmoil, happens. And it's, it really gets at the idea of, how, we're all different, and maybe we should respect those differences instead of trying to self-ostracize ourselves away from others. We should just be who we are and be accepting at the same time of other people, regardless, if it's your hair color or whatever. I use my hair color because nobody talks about redheads, and this is my way of bringing the redheads and the redhead cause and the redhead topic a little bit more to the foreground. And so that's what it is in a 1.5 minute pitch right there.
Yeah, and I'm playing a little bit of the video now. Obviously, I can't play the audio, or else YouTube would kick me off because there's music with it too. But go to his website and look at it. And I think my son has been fortunate that he has not had, as far as I know, he has never told me, and I've never witnessed it, any problems with having red hair. I've always thought he has gorgeous hair. So, from that standpoint, I've never really thought that much about it. But I know that when I was growing up, yeah, I saw some of that too. And you do it in a very creative way, very fun way to watch.
Yeah, I don't like preachy things. I don't like, telling people something very specific and like, just beating people over the head with it. But if I can, create satire, or I can, create something that I like to say I make photographs that have a smirk in them somewhere. And so I always try to never lose sight of that in my photographs. So even making a project about redheads and Redhead Alliance, there's still somewhere maybe buried in the image is a smirk, or like a wink, here's our big concept, and
yeah,
here it goes.
Yeah. So go to the website, look at that video, and look at some of the others while you're there too, because I was about to start playing another one, but I can't do that. I'll be distracted and watch that and not focus on what we're doing here. But wow, we're almost at the end here, and I still got to go over all the images. So Andy, thank you for coming. It's been a joy talking to you and watching your photos. I will have your links in the show notes for people who, if you didn't get his website, they had it at the bottom of his screen, but it's really easy. AndyBloxham.com, and it's, you can see when his name comes up. It's pretty easy to spell too. Andy, what is next for you? What is the next project? Are you going to go make an even longer trip somehow to Maine when you
Uh,
go, or
I've been
Shootapalooza 3?
trying to figure. I wanted to shoot Palooza 3, but I wanted to do it in Europe.
Ooh,
And so I'm holding off for that. I'd probably like another year or two.
that would be a
But
long drive
I've
to Maine.
been, yeah, a few boats involved. But no, I do. For years, I've been doing like online writing, and I want to. And there's a whole group of writers, and I've been writing like this main character for years, and I kind of want to go in and start investigating the stories that I've written over the past years, and start making photographs based upon like all of this prose. It's a huge 500 pages of prose that I probably have, and just start digging in, seeing if I can turn this into a photographic project, because it's always just been words, and I'm curious how it can translate into that. So it's still like very formative right now. This is
Okay.
bubbling, but yeah.
And one question before we end this, one question that I probably should have asked as we go along is, and you don't have to give me details here, but just general idea, is are you doing all this, is that trip and all the photos and all the stuff you're doing just for your creative outlet, your hobby, or are you doing this, is there a business angle to this?
It's both, I guess, in a way. Part of being a professor is also keeping up with your research. And so for a
True.
photographer, your research is, photography. And so I'm definitely doing that. The work that I make, it shows in galleries, it's in publications, it's work geared towards like a gallery space, and going into galleries and speaking about the work and holding workshops. And so it's all kind of very cyclical. It all kind of builds upon each other. So like I teach workshops because of the photographs I make, and then it kind of leads into like this opportunity, that opportunity. So it's just this big photo world that I'm in. Making work is just part of, what I do like every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I do sell the work, at the same time, but I'm not making the work specifically to try to turn like a profit. I'm making work that I am passionate about and showing it more like in an art sense. And as as a teaching tool too.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever thought of this, and you probably have, but I would think that there would be a market out there for people who would want themselves in this photo. That, hey, I want to do my family portrait Andy style.
There is. If you go to my website, there's a section called Twins, and so it's these two girls that I've been photographing in Louisiana for about the past 6 years or so. Their dad is the head of the architecture program at Louisiana Tech, and so these are his two daughters. And he basically commissioned me years ago to make a photograph of the girls in the manner of how I photograph, people. And so now every time I go back to Louisiana, we make a new photograph, and we just each year it's like a new idea. And we kind of play up, they're twins. So we kind of play up their interactions with each other. And there's like a dinosaur toy they have, and it's always like a quest to come up with some kind of new story. And so I definitely do that at the same time. And I think it's as much just like the enjoyment of getting to do that for them, and the collaboration that I have. And I never try to be a photographer. I never try to let money, guide me to something. I'd much rather let money be like a fortunate side effect of what I'm doing, but not necessarily like my motivating factor, because then I don't value what I'm doing. I have to enjoy the work first, and then whatever happens, happens.
No, and I can understand that. I think that sometimes when you monetize it and you have to do it commercially, it takes away from the creative side and becomes more difficult, and it really doesn't feel the same. Now, a question aside from everything, as a parent, did you really duct tape the wall, and where when I take the paint that off the wall, I'm taking sheetrock along with it?
We really did duct tape the wall, but it didn't pull paint off or anything like that.
Really?
And I to give away like my secrets or whatever. She's on a stool, like when she's duct taped, so it's not like stuck on there really hard. And then there's one frame where we pull the stool, and like her dad holds her in place on the wall.
Okay.
And then I take one shot there, and I just combine the feet and all of that.
Yeah, the cloning and composite shot. Yeah. But no, I would love this. And is there a whole series of these? You said. Oh, is this the
There
only
is.
one of them up there?
No, there should be like probably 5 or
Okay.
so. Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are different images. Each year we make a new one.
See, this to me, and I know we're going again against the making it commercial, but man, you talk about having different shots to your kids. I mean, I would pay for this kind of stuff. That not getting something different that everybody else is not getting. The annual family shot of you just standing there in front of the Sears or whatever, the Olin Mills fake background. Or it's getting a little better than that. You got more photographers who are now taking much better, high quality stuff than that. But this is even a step beyond that. Is creative that you're not going to have your friends are not going to come up with the same shot.
Exactly. No, I'm totally for doing stuff like this, and I think for me, what's really great is, if you're doing this commercially, being paid not because you know how to use a camera, but you're being paid because you're making the photograph that only you could make. And
Exactly.
that's the trick, is to to have a passion and pursue it, even if you were to never make money off of it at all. And then you become the experts, or quote unquote the expert in that. And then people will come to you because of, of who you are as a photographer, not because you are a photographer. And so I definitely enjoy, doing this. Because it's getting to utilize my positives, and I love the family too. So it's just great, having a pizza with them and seeing how life has been for the past 6 months, and just make a new photo.
All right. So now I don't know if you guys out in chat have been watching, but I think every scene, the dinosaur somewhere in the scene.
Yes, there's a new one coming out. We made a new one over Christmas. The dinosaur's name is Tiny, and Tiny, over the years, has become a little deflated, and so
Getting
Santa
tinier.
Claus, Tiny is getting tinier, and over Christmas, Santa Claus brought them 2 new baby T-Rexes, and so the baby T-Rexes make their first appearance in the next photograph that'll be, being posted, fairly soon, in probably the next few weeks,
Okay.
and so yeah, there's a new one on its way.
Well, I know I'm running a little long, but I got to ask you one more question
That's fine.
as we end this. Is so all the shots we're seeing they just work really well, but as we know with photography, not everything works. Have you had many that you have this thought in your mind, you go and do it, and it just doesn't work?
Tons. You just don't see them.
That's good to know. Good to know, because I have, I imagine for some of us who are not nearly as creative as you, or haven't done as many these types of shots, that we'd have more of those not working out in the beginning, but you push through and keep going, and you get better at it over time, right? But even at your skill level, you're still having shots that just don't work.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's the idea. It's just not a good idea sometimes. The fiction work, the earlier work from grad school and post grad school, early professor career, I refer to it as fictions, and they're numbered sequentially. And I think I'm up to number 67 or something, but I only showed 20 images, from that collection of work. And so some have been shown in the past, and they just get weeded out because better ones come in. But there are some that I'll make the photograph and they don't get past the computer. I'm just like, this just doesn't work. And you feel it when you're making the photograph. And if you actually, I can tell a quick little fun story. The photograph where I'm holding up this little cell phone and taking a selfie on a paintball course, or it's a war zone or something.
Mm-hmm.
You can normally tell when you're shooting if the photograph is going to be good or not based upon how passionate you are in the making of the image. And when I was making that photograph, I was incredibly, it was my first one, and I set the lights up, and I was trying to make this dark, brooding image, and I just got bored making the photograph, and I realized that I'm about to destroy 4 hours of invested time here to make an image, and I quickly just decided to just be myself, I'm already here, so why not just play around, just see, ad-lib, and see what can happen. And the more I started having fun and enjoying the process, and try not to be dialed down or dialed into a very specific preconceived idea, and the more I just kind of let it happen and live in it, the more compelling the image actually turned out. And if I had stuck to my original plan, I would have been bored making it. I think the image would have probably came out boring, and it probably never would have appeared in a frame on a wall or a magazine or anything. So I think you can adjust when you're shooting. Again, it's based upon like your mentality when you're making the photograph. Sometimes.
And I'm looking for that image. Is that one you sent me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see it now. Hold on. How am I going to get this in here? Yep. Okay, I got it now. I want to show that one because since you were talking about it.
Okay.
love the face, and again, this is watching the background, the face, the guy back there. Great face.
And that comes from just like changing up the plan. You realize some points that if you're not into it, you can't expect anybody else to be into it. Into like the idea. And so just working with the idea. Like I've had photographs that are technically fine, but they're just flat and boring because I didn't push myself. I didn't push the people. I didn't push the idea enough.
So what was the idea before the selfie?
The idea it was inspired by like Halo in a way. I've been playing like Call of Duty and Halo, and I just
big Call of Duty fan here.
Okay. So it had like all of that mentality going into it, and like I said, everything starts off with a story. So like in the story, I was like running through this old abandoned church, with pews, and we're like playing like Halo with like paintball guns, firing back and forth at each other, and basically destroying this place. And I just kind of modified the idea into this space and kind of use that as my jumping off point here. But I wanted to keep this very kind of like military-like, sinister tone. And when I was actually making it, I realized that there was a mismatch between my idea and the production, and it wasn't going to be as good as I thought it was going to be. And I just kind of on the fly just changed, and tried something else, and that ended up being, the better idea. So in the end, this photograph, it's inspired by a story, but it doesn't necessarily relate back to the story directly. The story itself and the storyboard is kind of like it's your foundation to get you to here.
Well, and that was a good decision, right, at the spur of the moment, to not spend all that time trying to pursue the other angle and to just go with this one. Were you trying to create something like the Call of Duty ads that they've had for the last couple of Call of Duties, where they have the actors and all, they're running through there and they're, blowing stuff up and doing that kind of stuff? Not something like that?
I think this was before. This is 2007, so this is probably before.
Yep, that is before those ads.
I just tried to be myself, how I normally would act, like on a weekend alone at my apartment taking cell phone pictures. Just kind of like, went with that. And I was really just trying to kill time until I came up with a better idea.
Okay.
And, just that's just ended up actually, I just started laughing when I first saw this on the computer. And, I was like, can people go into a gallery and laugh? We're going to see. We're going to push this more because I like it. And I think, Kurt Vonnegut, when he's talking about writing, he says, write to please at least one person. Because if you try to make love to the world, so to speak, your story will get pneumonia. So in this case, you're trying to at least make a photograph that's going to make at least one person happy. And that one person might only be yourself. But if you can do that, maybe other people have the same sense of humor, the same, goals or perceptions as you do as a photographer.
Okay. Andy, thank you for coming, and we can keep going for a long time, but I do need to wrap this up. And we still got the end of the show stuff to go over. You're welcome to hang out with us if you want and look at these photos. But we got some photos to go over from our contest in January, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit about each one, and we've already picked the winners. So I know the winners that we're going to talk about, but we're going to go over each one a little bit. So you are welcome to hang out. Tim, are you getting the clapping ready or something?
How did you know?
Something just popped up on my screen. And out in chat, they're saying y'all are still, the video's moving for me. Is it moving for you?
Seems to be moving.
Yeah. It's never paused for me. Hopefully it's gone there. All right, so let's get up to the first one. And we had two topics for January. One was window light, and the other was lines. So Tim and Andy, we're going to go over window light first. And I probably should bring up the the comments. Tim, while we're going over this one, the first one is from Trish.
Yeah, I got to get my comments out also.
Ingle King. I'm horrible with names, Andy. Trish Ingle King. These are in no particular order. And let's see. So, okay. So I should mention, as we're going over window lighting, the rules are that no admin, because we have 4 or 5 admins in the Facebook group. No admin can take the place of a non-admin. So if an admin's photo makes it to the finals, then another person gets also to be added into the finals. So there's normally 3 people in the finals. And if an admin's image makes it in, then there's going to be 4. Well, this month we actually had 2 admins make it into the finals. Both Gina and Nikki made it into the finals, which means neither one of them could vote, and we ended up having to have 2 guest admins do the voting on the images. And the guest admins for this month was Kathleen and Scott Green. So I give you that on the front end. And I know those names probably don't mean anything to you, Andy, but if you've watched, the people who watched the show for a while, Kathleen was a co-host for a long time until she had her 3rd baby and needed some time off. So, Tim, do you want to start off with Trisha's image here?
Well, I guess this is the boy coloring, and what I really liked about this was it was an even picture. I liked the depth of field where it really focused in on the boy coloring, but at the same time, you knew exactly where he was. He was more or less in a playroom. It was great lighting, just the room lighting from a window, very even lighting. So I like this picture a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I did too. I think that a couple of the comments, on the negative side maybe was the lighting was a little bit too even. The boy's face could be a little bit sharper, something like that. It was nothing. It was nothing really that wrong with it. It was nice. It was a nice image and cute. Cute little boy and everything. And Andy, you're probably, if you want to see it bigger, you can click on that thumbnail and it'll blow up for you.
Okay.
If that works.
Yeah. Do you want my comments?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't think it's a problem with the lights. Even lighting. If you go with more contrast, it's a kid. He's pretty happy, so you don't necessarily need this, added drama to the scene unless it, fits your idea. But I think it's a pretty positive, optimistic image. I think the lighting actually works well for it. I'm a little distracted by some of the out of gamut colors in the background, like this blue, it's kind of like appearing back there. But I think something like that could just be pulled down a little bit, just to kind of keep you back at like the kid and like in the foreground. Is there like a name tag or like some kind of name placed between his feet?
That is her watermark.
Okay. I couldn't tell what that was. Yeah, I think like the real benefit here is just the way that the focus kind of just pulls you in, and anything that's like miscellaneous, it's just kind of like pushed away into the abyss of bokeh. So, yeah.
Awesome. So we're getting celebrity critiques tonight. Awesome. All right. Up next, and crap, let me get this ready. There we go. Up next is Gina Perry's shot, and it's coming through with her black background on the black background of the video is a little misleading, and I don't want you to judge it based on that. So ignore the black bars to the side. That is my video. That is not her image. Okay. I like the negative space in this shot. I like the touch of the baby's butt you're seeing and the baby fat you're seeing there. The one thing that somebody did mention, and wasn't a drawback for me, but one of the judges said something about not having a pacifier there might have added something. I don't know. I like the pacifier there, so I'm not going to take away from that.
Yeah, actually, I kind of like the pacifier. Kind of like the baby is looking up at something. Like it's the only thing that's saving him from sitting there by himself.
Yeah.
He's like, "Why are you leaving me here?"
Mm-hmm. I don't mind it at all. I think it's interesting lighting, coming down. I'm always, hesitant because it's a black foreground, black background. There's no shadows to ground the kid, so the kid feels like it's just kind of like floating in the air. But that just a personal aesthetic, preference. It kind of, it's feel it's just kind of like this floating child. But I think, I mean, I know what's going on, so I kind of think past that and just kind of look at just the quality of light. And they've done a good sense of, just kind of light design, keeping the brightest element to the face and letting it taper down from there to where like you're pulled into that main focus point. And if it's a pacifier, it's a pacifier. And I think that's totally cool.
Yeah. Wow, we should just let you talk on each one instead of Tim and I trying to. And what I don't know, and we'd have to probably look at the image instead of having the streamed image. Is there may be something where you can see that the bottom is sitting on something, so it's not necessarily floating. I can't tell from what I'm looking at here, so
okay,
I don't want to be too critical on her for that, because it could be that in the real image you could see it. In this degraded quality, we can't. But let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
And this one is another admin, Nikki, and I think she's out there in chat. So let's not be too hard on Nikki. I'm a dog person, but I think cats are cute too. And yeah, I mean the coloring in this one for me, the depth of field is good. The cat's focus is good. Yeah. That's my comments.
What I liked also about this, and I took it a little bit deeper into it, when you looked into the cat's eyes, you actually could see the window that is lighting the scene.
Really?
If you look at the right or the left pupil, I guess, in the black, you can actually see the frame of the window. That's that's one of the things I really liked about this picture. Also, it took it to and I don't know if Nikki had planned that, and she could say she did because it'll make me feel good. But you actually see the window in there. So I was like, well, window lighting, you see a window in the cat's eyes. I really like this picture.
And you're not going to be able to see that in this degraded quality that we're streaming. All right, Andy.
I can't see that at all. So basically when I see these images, I'm not really basing it like on sharpness, like relative to the lens or anything. I just kind of look at the design of it.
Sure.
And I think, you're definitely pulled into like, these, billowing eyes of the cat. I'm not necessarily a cat person or a dog person. I had a pet cactus once and it died. So, that's as far as I can go.
A pet cactus?
The one thing, a pet cactus, yeah.
Okay.
I'm less nurturing than the desert. And so the one thing I would just kind of bring up is we got like this line coming in almost, like to where the ear like meets the top of the head. And so it's creating like this really harsh junction. And so I almost would like to see if the camera were positioned a little more to the left, it would position the cat against like this neutral yellow background, and then contrast that with the darker tones to the cat's right, and it would probably create a stronger composition. And so I think like the camera, abilities are great in this photograph. I would just think more about the design and just kind of looking at the whole scene. You're responsible for every corner of a photograph, and so that could be like a point of conflict, somewhere in the photograph, just to think about in the future. But I think the image itself, it's looks like a fun cat.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Nikki did say she intended to get that window in the eye, Tim. But she did intend to do that. But as Andy points those things out, that is now I'm drawn to that the lines that are coming down, and I do agree that on to our right, that background that you see, that yellow muted background, that might have been, if you came a little bit more over to the left of the cat, that you might have got a better angle. But she might, if she was trying to get the window light in there, she might not have been able to do that.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one, and this is the last one in the window category. And this one's by Leanne McConnell. Every time I hear McConnell, I think of what is that? It's not the zombie movie. Never mind. Let's go on.
Well, what I liked about
Mummy.
this picture, what I liked about this picture here is it's got that really diffused picture.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of my daughter, who granted is only 19 months old, but she's about to fall asleep and she is staring off, looking right past the camera. So she's not really there with the picture, but I really love the lighting is great on this picture. It's once again, it's another black and white photo, which is very interesting to see here. I just really like this picture. And I think it's just a girl's eyes.
Yeah, there's a photographer in Virginia named Sally Mann. she photographs her kids. She actually got into like controversy over that because of some of the content. But she has a photograph of one of her daughters that this photograph reminds me of in a way. This is a little more positive, uplifting, representation of a child. Like the Silent Man's is a little darker, maybe a little more brooding, but it still has that young child direct eye contact with the camera. It's very confrontational. So this one actually just kind of you can't get away from that eye. That eye actually, from what I'm viewing, might be over contrasted in relation to the whites in the other part of the photograph, but at the same time, it pulls you in right to there. And so you can't, it's like the eye of Sauron, you can't get anywhere else in the photograph because that kid's staring you down, and you can't help but look straight, into, their face and come to your own conclusions. So I think it's captivating. And there should be probably more photographs like this. She's got a subject willing to be photographed, and she's good. So
Eye of Sauron. That is a Lord of the Rings reference. I don't know if everybody got, but that's the same thing I thought when I saw this. Is I'm drawn in from that eye, and I have trouble moving anywhere else. But I like that. I like the eye, and I actually forgot the fifth image. But while y'all were talking and giving me some buffer time there, I pulled it in and got it ready. The last one in the window light category was from Stephen Arrowwood. Another, when you said another black and white, Tim, that reminded me. Wait, we got 5. Where's the 5th one? And it's from Stephen, who was our winner, grand prize winner for all of 2013. So I can't forget him.
I was wondering if you forgot. I was like, did I miss an image somewhere?
Yeah, I am glad that I remembered that. So it's somewhat of a story like what we're going over with Andy's photos. There's a little bit of story here on why the two women are just look like they're having a great time, and the dude does not look like he's having a great time. And what's going on in the scene here. So while I'm drawn to the guys right at first, I go around the image. Obviously go to the cleavage of the woman, go to the smiles of the two women. And make your way around the image. I like this one. I think it's a fun image.
Well, it's like you're looking at the guy there and you're wondering, what is he thinking about here? And it's like, was he like hitting on the two girls and now they made it out on him, so that he's hitting on them, and they're having a joke between the two of them, and he's staring off the camera like, really, did this just happen to me? I mean, it's almost like a little story here, and you can interpret it a lot of ways.
It is. It almost feels like, he came in as like, someone who thought he knew what was going on, and he's going to leave, being the center of a story that's going to be told, between these two. It has a very editorial feel to it at the same time, almost like product photography. Like this almost feels like a Jack Daniels photograph, what can happen, on a night of Jack and Coke, or it could be, like a photograph, like a lifestyle photograph from like a cigarette company or something of that sort, or like a bar or anything like that. So I think it can definitely. I don't know if the story in this would lend itself super well to like a bar owner, trying to pitch their bar, but I think photographs like this definitely can be done, and the photographer has the talent to do, editorial lifestyle photographs for places, because they're really good at just showing product at the same time, and mixing that into like this overarching story or concept in the image.
All right. Very good. So now that's all the 5 in the in this challenge. The challenge was window lighting, and the 5 images. What happens then is the admins vote, and since Nikki and Gina were out because they were in the 5, we have Kathleen and Scott Green, who were our guest people. So all of us vote. Then we take the vote. We all rank them. Then we take the rankings, and whoever got the lowest number, which means you got the most number of 1s or 2s or whatever it was, ends up being the winner. So it's a group vote. And Tim, you ready for me to get the winner ready? The winner for the window light is Leanne with the little girl. Congratulations, Leanne. I don't know if Andy I didn't want to ask Andy and put him on the spot and then us be wrong, and ask Andy which one he would have picked. But Andy did like this one. We all like this one, of course. Great shot, and you will get the pick. Well, maybe we have to wait until we go to the next one. one of you two, either the winner of this one or the winner of the lines, we have to pick the theme for March. The theme for February is HDR, so that's already been picked for that month. But congratulations, Leanne. Congratulations, all our finalists.
Nice.
It was, as always, it was another close vote, and could have gone either way with a couple of the images. So congratulations, everybody.
Nice.
All right, now to the next category, and first up over there is somebody who's been in the finals a number of times and won in the past too, I believe. Jeannie, with her lines. All right, Tim, did you want to comment on this?
No, I think this is one of the comments was this is, and there was a lot of different types of pictures in here for lines, but this is probably what I was thinking of when the topic came out, and it's, I think she said in her write up of the picture was that it was a place that she and her husband had walked by a dozen of times. She showed the picture to her husband, and he had no clue where it was, and it was in a hospital, and it shows the beauty that's out there and the lines that you don't even see something you walk by. And I like that there are lines going everywhere with this. The picture really drew you into it, and it's something you would see every day, but probably never give a second thought to.
It is something where if you crop, I'm sorry, Andy, if you crop something a little different and you get a different angle on a shot, it can be something, an everyday thing that you go by every day can have a different look to it. It is what I typically, what I was thinking when I thought of lines, and where most people were going to go was some, real lines like this. If you look through the whole group, we're only going to show 3 here in the finalists, but the whole group of people who entered lines, there was a lot of creativity in what lines meant.
Well, and this one could have also been in window light.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andy.
No, this one, there's like 3 million lines in this photograph, so it kind of embodies like the idea. And I think, as Tim just said, it's also just about the light, more than even just the lines. It's how the light is falling upon the lines. So I think as a light study, it's a really interesting photograph. The only thing I would just kind of like be wary of is when you're photographing lines, if you're not square on, so like you're like whatever the middle section of your photograph is, you end up with like lens distortion. So like everything's running uphill in this photograph, and people who use view cameras would correct for that with tilts and shifts and things like that. It might do this photograph a little bit good just to kind of do some lens correction and kind of enlarge the bottom just to kind of even out some of these lines, because what I'm trying to find where the main line is, and I'm trying to find something very geometrically solid, and everything is kind of leaning a little bit or kind of moving to the side or anything like that. And I think if I just had like one spot that was just like really strong, like geometrically strong and powerful and centered, straight up and down or left and right, I would be able to lock in there. And then the lines could then go from wherever, in the photograph, and it would be okay. That would be the only thing I would, really to offer and comment on. I think it's a great light study photograph, though.
Am I seeing that when I go to the left of the image and the lines and the blocks of the glass are coming off at an angle from where it's being cut off? Is that one of the clues there that what you're talking about? You see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, if you were to look at right above, I think these are steps.
Yeah.
There's right on the edge, there are these little squares. If you follow them up, they eventually start leaning to the right, and then another set of squares begins to appear to the left of them. So being able to see like a set of squares start and end in the same spot, from the bottom to the top of the image, would make it more geometrically, because this photograph is about geometry.
Right.
And so something that would be like geometrically strong and less organic would, I think, build more upon what the content is that they're photographing.
And I think that's the same what I was talking about. I just didn't say it as good as you did. Is and as you follow the left edge of the image, you can see that the line doesn't come straight down, and that's right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on to the next image, and this was another one from as I pull it up, from Leanne. She entered both of the contests, as a number of people did, and this is a completely different take on lines, lines on a man's face, which I thought was a very creative take on the topic of lines, and Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Andy. Just let Andy go.
What's interesting is how they've kind of taken the idea of lines and lines, parlays wisdom or like insight. With age, with knowledge comes the wrinkles of having to carry that burden, perhaps. So that's maybe like a theoretical way to interpret it. I think it's a really good, strong portrait. I think it's really interesting how it's just kind of like splitting the frame. So it's like the right side you have negative space, on the left side you have like this man. I can't, like, the image I'm looking at, it looks like there's like a black glow around his nose, and I can't tell if that's just the screen I'm seeing or if that's actually there.
I think that what Andy is seeing, guys, is a degraded version that's being sent through the Hangout, and I think that what's happening, part of what you're seeing, maybe Andy, is the background is the bokeh back there is that there is a black area. It's darkish. It may be enhanced because of the way you're seeing it.
Yeah, I don't see that on the Facebook page, so.
I think you should be able to see, Tim, that there is a little bit of a black area of the.
There's a little black right to the top of it, but not really prominent.
Right, it's not as prominent as what you're probably seeing, Andy.
Right.
Okay. It could. That stuff happens when you like this photograph looks like it's been sharpened. Probably some high pass or unsharp mask or clarity or something of that sort, and it does create a halo, like around points of contrast.
Right.
And so like that contrast is definitely beneficial, like to the man's skin, to like the beard and all of that. Just areas over there you just kind of have to watch out for, and I'd have to look on the Facebook page to see exactly if it's there beyond here. But I think it's a great interpretation. It's unexpected, and it's just a really nice portrait of the man. I would even consider cropping it a little bit off to the left, because you see like where his sideburns are coming down, you get a little bit of that skin, that flesh tone just past the sideburn. And I wonder, like, I'm actually got a finger up right now cropping that little piece of skin out, and I feel like without that there, your eye isn't pulled to that side of the frame, and you're kind of left to just kind of stay right where his eyes are. And it goes back to the photograph of the kid, like the ISR photograph I mentioned. You're pulled into the eye, and then you kind of use that as your starting point and then move out from there. And that little section over there is just a tad bit distracting, but it pulls away from what it is overall, like a really good image.
That was one of the comments, I think, from one of the admins. I don't remember who said that chopping off just a little bit more of that ear or where the sideburns are coming off would have been less distracting, just like what Andy said. And Andy, as I look at it on the Facebook page, I don't think she over sharpened it. So I from what I'm seeing at the size I'm seeing it, so I just blew it up full screen. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So I think it's probably something in the way that I'm sending it to you to see. So I don't want to be too harsh on that, but I agree with a little bit tighter crop would have gotten rid of that spot, because as you look at the lines on his eyes, you do make your way over to that spot, and I think once you do, now you can't help but see it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last one in the lines. I'm sorry. Did you have another?
Oh, I'm just going to the Facebook page right now to find it.
It's on the page. It's on the page. I posted it there too.
Cool. It's not as dramatic as what I was seeing. It's there a little bit.
It is okay.
Not horrible.
All right, so let's go to the last one in the lines category, and this is another completely different take on lines. The lines of the feather. Was this a peacock feather? I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking it is, but you know what? I'm not quite sure what it was.
All right, Andy, you just want to go? You can give better feedback than we are.
A lot more eloquent than what we say.
I think it's a peacock. It's almost like a scanogram, or like I think that's the word for it, like the scanner obscura, where you use just the scanner to make the photograph and use the scanner as your camera.
Okay.
It's very concrete, so it's I think it's technically well done, it's this object against white, but for me personally, I have a hard time moving beyond anything other than the obvious of what it is, just because I think again it's fine, it's a really well made photograph. However it's done, I'm just trying to see where I you know, kind of move throughout the image, you know, and I just have a hard time moving much further other than just what it is, you know, like, so like I said, it's very concrete, you know, this is a photograph of a feather. And so, yeah, I think the skills are there. There's nothing against the photograph. I think it's fine. I think just I have a hard time seeing anything other than just the obvious of what is in the frame.
I think one of the things that missed the mark a little bit on this for me was that the focus point seems a little bit too far to the right, and the main part of the feather, which would be the blue, seems to be just slightly out of focus compared to the right side. And I think if I would have done it, I would have focused more heavily toward the blue.
Yeah. Andy, I think we need to have you do our critiques every month because you know, these are actually very helpful. If you listen to what Andy's saying about the images, they're very helpful critiques. He's not being harsh. These are the kind of critiques that help you grow as a photographer. He's not being harsh and saying this sucks, or, you know. I think I like the way you're doing it, Andy. You're giving out the positive and ways to improve it too. And that's right. The thing with any image. I can imagine even with your images, you look at, if I had this to do over again, I'd do it something a little bit different with the shot, and especially with, you know, I don't want to speak for the skill level of these people because I don't know where they're at. They may be further along or just starting out, but especially if you're just starting out, having helpful feedback like Andy has given is very, very valuable.
I think critiquing it's important, and I think it's easy to be, you know, a jerk and critique and just say, I don't like this, you should put the camera down forever. There's nothing productive there. So I think when you're talking about work, you know, if you have something positive, say, explain why you feel it's positive. And it's the same, if you have something negative, explain why you feel it's negative, and be able to articulate. They're at least presenting like an articulation of an image to you, so you should be able to articulate a response back to that image, right. Yay or nay. I will give you a little story. I critique all my students like this, you know, and probably even more detailed, you know, like, you should work on this 6 pixels in this photograph or whatever. And so now my students are like, they see everything in the photograph. And when I made that work for the summer, I had an exhibit coming up and I had prints made. And I always go through with a Sharpie and I just circle everything that could potentially be wrong in the photograph. And I let one of my students, Diana, I laid out 16 prints in front of her. And I was like, all right, here's a Sharpie. Point out everything you think is wrong in every one of these photographs. So she spent like the next hour and a half just laying there, like it was on the floor of the studio, just marking every single thing. And she told me it was like one of the best days of her college ever for her. You know, she finally got to get back at me, you know, and critique my stuff. So.
Well, you know, because photography is an art, and even if you looked at it and thought, okay, I've achieved perfection with this, there's nothing I would change, the next person who looked at it may have things they want to change because it is an art, not a science. Right.
I mean, I feel like I can't remember who said it, but they said the perfect execution of a negative is a science, but the perfect execution of an image is the art. And I just butchered that quote, but I think there's definitely a scientific and an artistic, you know, collision that creates photography. And I think being well-rounded in both the technical and the conceptual is hopefully what gets your image to where it needs to be. I cite Abraham Maslow, a psychologist, when I think about critiquing work and thinking about photographs, where he had the hierarchy of needs, you know, to where self-actualization is your goal as a human, but you can't reach that until you have like these foundational building blocks, you know, like, you know, a roof over your head, you know, food, water, et cetera, et cetera. And once you attain that, then you can go to the next stage, next stage, next stage, next stage. And I try to do the same thing with photographs, where there's the basic image needs. You know, is it technically well done? Is it in focus? You know, it's hard to write poetry if you don't know how to spell, you know, for the most part. So, you know, do you have the technical things done correctly? Do you understand how to use your camera? Do you understand, you know, white balance, whatever? And if so, then yes, now we move to the next stage. Aesthetically, design, color theory, like how do you have all those components coming together for your image, you know? And if all of that works great on just a purely aesthetic stage. Then I go to the next stage where I'm talking about concepts and what is the idea? What is the emotion you're talking about in the image, and where does it, affect the viewer on like a gut level, beyond the technical. But I feel like there's definitely, it starts off technical and then builds to just purely, conceptual at the same time.
Yeah, I think that technical foundation is very important. Andy, you should be a professor of photography.
I've been thinking about it. Yeah.
All right. So to wrap up the lines category, we need to announce a winner here, Tim. And for the first time ever, the same person won both categories. Leanne with the lines. In two different groups of people, somewhat voted on the two. So there was not a collaboration on the two topics. But Leanne won. I think she had the strongest of the three images as far as lines go. It was again another close vote. I'm looking at it right now, and there was a 0.4 difference between first and second place. So very tight on that. But Leanne, you won the lines thing. So congratulations on that. And
I guess we don't have to worry about two people selecting the topic for March.
I was going to have, that was lucky because I was going to have to pick one of the two and say, you get the pick and you don't, because I can't do double topics every month. So somebody's going to pick it, and now it works out because Leanne won both, so she'll just get the pick. Congratulations, Leanne. Congratulations to everybody who entered the contest, and especially the finalists. We are thinking about, the admins are thinking about a little bit different twist on the contest coming up soon with how we pick who makes it to the finals. So stay tuned in the Facebook group for maybe some changes coming to how we pick the ones that make it into the finals. All right. Tim, any closing remarks before we head out?
No, I think it was good. Andy, thank you very much. You really gave a lot of insight, and definitely also with critiquing photos. Obviously, you are much better at it than we are, but had good learning today. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you, Andy.
And just for having me.
And if you want to hang out for a few minutes, I'm going to say our closing remarks, then I'll say our closing comment, and then we'll do a little bit of post show, and you can leave at any point you want to during that. But if you came in late, I think I saw a couple people who came in late, maybe somebody who left early. Guest 895, I think maybe had to leave during the middle of it for a little bit. I do record these. They will be available later on YouTube, on Stitcher Radio, on Spreaker, if you want to do audio only. And if you do audio only, please go over to Andy's site so you can see the actual images we're talking about, or the show notes on the post where we have some of the images too. So you can get it on, like I said, on iTunes, on YouTube, on TiVo. I guess I'll get it on TiVo, and a number of other places. If you find a place where we're not there, let me know, and I'll work on getting us there. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, we're getting closer to 1,200, Tim, over there. Very active group, and the challenges are getting more and more activity in them, the monthly challenges. So, think about coming and joining the Facebook group and contributing over there. We'd love to have you. If you're not a Facebook person, but you're a Google Plus person, we also have a Google Plus community with not nearly as many people, but it is growing, and we'd love to have you over in that group too if you'd rather be over there. YouTube is a great place to subscribe. Tim, we're now over 1,900 subscribers over there and growing. So that's a good avenue. And don't forget, I've made a little link at the top of the viewer you're looking at here. The way we're able to give Leanne the $25 that she's going to win as a gift card is by people using the Amazon link. Trying to make it as easy as possible. Just use the Amazon link every time you go to Amazon. We don't keep any of the funds. We use them for the giveaway each month, and for other things we do. But none of it makes it into the show, the cost of the show. It all goes back to the fans. I fund the show through, from my personal funds as a hobby. So, think about doing that. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It doesn't have to be photo related. Tim bought a hard drive not too long ago. I've seen people buy shoes and books and cell phones and stuff like that. So it can be anything. Just think about using that link. It's real easy to remember. www.jpeg2RAW.com/Amazon. And with that, we will see you next week. Until then, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.